Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. We're excited to have everyone here with us today. As people kind of trickle in, if you wanted to go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat with maybe your name and your organization and maybe like a 2023 fundraising goal of yours, I think that would be great. We'll kind of give people time to trickle in. But like I said, please feel free to add your name, your organization to the chat and maybe a fundraising goal that you have this year. I think it can just be helpful to kind of see that. Um, just for an introduction to today's topic, I know that after the end of year giving season, it can often be a time where maybe you're reflecting, celebrating a lot of those wins, but you might also kind of be wondering, how can I keep my donors engaged and ensure that my organization really kind of remains top of mind for donors, maybe those who gave at the end of the year or those that gave earlier on in 2022. And so I know that we're all thinking about maintaining that momentum from 2022 into this new year. And so hopefully we'll address all of that today. Like I said, just kind of allowing time for people to trickle in and doing some introductions as well. While people continue to come in to get started with those introductions, my name is Mackenzie Burke-Buckler. I'm on the partnerships team at Double the Donation. If you are unfamiliar with Double the Donation, we offer our 360 Match Pro software, which is essentially a matching gift automation tool. And so really what it does is it makes capturing matching gifts really simple for your team. I'm really grateful to be here today with ClickBid, and I'm glad to get the opportunity to speak with Matt, who I'll let kind of introduce himself now.
Yeah, thank you, Mackenzie. And yes, my name is Matt Burnell. I'm ClickBid's founder and original code writer for ClickBid. I started in the first event in 2002 for a hospice organization here in Michigan, and we've since grown to several, many thousands of events annually, and a nice, well-rounded staff that takes a lot of pressure off of me from early days. And excited to be here, excited to share some of the stories from my past, from other folks here in the organization who have been to and witnessed events as well, and try to come up with those smart ideas that we take into 2023 and 2024.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear your insights. I think we'll both kind of come from different angles, provide a lot of really good creative ideas to help fundraising organizations kind of stand out this year with their messaging and really garner that donor attention, which I know is so important. Just to further kind of explain why we're here today, Double the Donation and ClickBid have an existing partnership. And so our 360 Match Pro software does integrate into ClickBid solutions. So we definitely have that technical integration, but of course, kind of in addition to that, we also often like to partner up to help organizations experience fundraising success. And so we like to provide these educational resources a lot. So really excited to be able to do that with the audience we have here today. I'm excited to see some of you introducing yourselves in the chat. As kind of promised in the description, we'll cover two main areas. And so I'm going to begin by outlining workplace giving opportunities and really how to get started with them. And Matt is going to share his insights on kind of crafting powerful messages and fundraising smarter. And then of course, we'll leave some time for a Q&A period. So please feel free to add your questions to the chat throughout. I know Matt and I are kind of eager to hear what you guys want to know and answer those questions. Without further ado, in order to leave time for all of that, we can really kind of dive into the content now. And so, like I said, we're going to start with workplace giving opportunities. And the reason that I do want to start here and by highlighting these is because I think workplace giving is kind of an untapped resource. The reason for that being that workplace giving can not only be an important or crucial funding source for your organization, but also I think when you promote workplace giving and educate donors about this giving avenue, you can cultivate really strong donor relationships, which I know is important. And so we'll get into all of that later and outline why this is the case as we kind of progress through this section here. Before we do dive into those benefits, though, to kind of formally introduce workplace giving and outline the two most common forms, I kind of have this slide here. And I want to preface this by saying that workplace giving is an umbrella term. For a formal definition of like what it is, it's a company-sponsored program that provides its employees with the opportunity to support nonprofits. And so within this workplace giving umbrella, matching gifts and volunteer grants are two types. And the two that I really want to focus on most today, because frankly, they're the most popular forms of workplace giving and kind of the most easy to capture as well. And so as many of you might already know, matching gifts are in fact the most common form of workplace giving. And all this means is that when companies implement matching gift programs, they agree to financially match donations that their employees make to nonprofits. And so we always like to say for the cost of soliciting one gift from this donor, you really get two, which I think demonstrates how obviously matching gifts can increase your available funding. Although when we think of matching gifts, we all probably think of that common dollar for dollar structure, where if an employee donates 100, the company will also donate $100. There can be some variance in how matching gift programs are structured. So some matching gift programs might be more generous than a dollar for dollar structure. Maybe if an employee donates 100, the employer will donate 200, right? I make this little call out just to show you that even though I'm kind of breaking it down and making it really simple here, no two matching programs are the same. And so I'm giving a broad definition, but I just encourage you to remember that something like the Home Depot's program will differ from Verizon's, which will differ from Disney's, right? And so always kind of keep in mind that every company is going to have specific guidelines. Another variance that we see, and as might not always be as well known, is that oftentimes even things like the tax deductible amount of event tickets are also eligible to be matched. So really, I make that call out to show you that matching gifts can help you reach your event attendees and regular donors alike. Even donations made at events are often eligible to be matched. And so really just important to keep in mind as you promote this funding source. Again, every company's program will differ, but I did want to make that call out that matching gifts are really broad. They can apply to regular donors and event attendees alike. And then really though, the bottom line is that no matter what form they take, matching gift programs can benefit donors and benefit your organization. The reason being that donors get to contribute to causes they care about through their employer, and you get to secure more funding. And so I think that that kind of captures the matching gift opportunity and sets us up to later talk about why this can be an effective avenue to use as you're looking for these ways to re-engage your donors in the new year. Moving on then to the second form of workplace giving I wanted to highlight, we also have volunteer grants, which are essentially corporate giving programs where employers will provide money to organizations where employees regularly volunteer. And so in other words, I like to say that some of your volunteers' commitment of time might be eligible to kind of be coupled with a financial donation from their employer. Of course, that's kind of just as powerful and provides that double impact in a very similar way that matching gifts do, because you're essentially getting two contributions for the cost of one. And so I know that having dedicated volunteers for your events is important to helping you carry out your mission. Donations are important to funding that mission. And so by being able to secure volunteer time and financial support kind of jointly, that can be really particularly powerful. For a few other notes or call outs with volunteer grants, as I'm kind of outlining the opportunity here, just like with matching gifts, no two volunteer grant programs are necessarily the same. There's not this like broad standardization that would make two programs identical. Instead, companies create and structure their programs kind of according to their own guidelines. And so that might mean that one company might have one minimum number of hours, whether that be 10 hours, and another company have 15 number of hours as their minimum before they would kind of issue that payment. The company might issue a per hour rate payment, or they might kind of issue one lump sum. They might have different variances in how they disperse their funds. There's all of these kind of different program parameters and guidelines to keep in mind. Again, I want to keep it kind of simple here because every company is different, and it would take a lot of time to go through all of that, but just kind of wanted to outline the volunteer grant opportunity and show that this form of workplace giving is extremely valuable and is something that's often overlooked by nonprofits and donors alike. And so that's why engaging your donors with these opportunities and helping them understand that these might be a benefit available to them through their employer is really important. And so moving on a little bit, I know we just reviewed those two opportunities, plus we know that other workplace giving programs exist. Maybe you think of like payroll deduction, annual giving, and more. And we kind of reviewed why they're important to your fundraising efforts and how they can help you engage donors. But you might be wondering kind of how prevalent these programs are, kind of just how many donors qualify, and could these opportunities potentially exist among your current donors, but kind of be overlooked? And I think that the exciting thing is that these workplace giving opportunities exist quite regularly and for many of your donors. In fact, we know that 40% of Fortune 500 companies offer volunteer grant programs. Of course, that number represents a major opportunity to reach those individuals and engage them in this kind of dual form of giving. When thinking about how companies structure their grant programs and financial donations, we also know that 80% of companies with volunteer grant programs provide between $8 to $15 per hour volunteered. And so for supporters, that's really empowering to know and can definitely fuel their satisfaction. We also know that over 26 million individuals qualify for matching gifts. Of course, that shows just how this could be kind of a relevant engagement tool for a large number of your donors. So many employees qualify and just might be unaware. And we also know that donors do take advantage of this workplace giving form when they know about it, because $2 to $3 billion is donated through these programs annually. And so I think while this suggests that many donors are already engaging with workplace giving, such as through matching gift programs, we also know that there tends to be a lot of untapped potential out there. And so that's kind of why we're here today. An opportunity exists to engage donors with workplace giving even more and close that $4 to $7 billion matching gift revenue gap that I have quantified on the screen here. That's how much matching gift revenue is being left on the table each year. And quickly, it's just important to understand that the reason for that matching gift revenue gap we just discussed, and maybe some lower levels of volunteerism than might be expected from employees eligible for volunteer grant opportunities, can mostly be kind of attributed to a lack of donor awareness. Donors are often just unaware that their employer offers these programs. And even maybe if they do know that the opportunity exists, then they might be unsure of how to take advantage of it. And so I have two stats on the screen here that showcase that. 78% of donors have no idea whether their company offers a matching gift program, and 16% know but don't know how to leverage it. Of course, the same trend can be applied to volunteer grants too. And so because of that lacking donor awareness, then nonprofits oftentimes miss out on receiving these funds and benefiting from these programs themselves. And so when we think about that, I think something kind of becomes clear. It's not that donors are unmotivated by these appeals or uninterested in participating in workplace giving. Of course, that's kind of far from the truth. Donors love workplace giving programs because they represent this dual opportunity to, one, kind of give to a cause that they care about, and two, engage with their employer. And so with that in mind, as a nonprofit, then, if you can actively promote these opportunities and increase donor awareness that they might be eligible, you can definitely showcase your responsibility and fuel engagement, which is, of course, kind of, again, why we're here today. When donors see you actively pursuing these giving avenues and recognize that you're trying to help them do more and use a work benefit, they'll be excited and kind of engaged with your communications and messages. And so kind of with that overview out of the way, in terms of getting started using workplace giving as a donor re-engagement tool this year and increasing that awareness, I think my first piece of advice would be to show the outcomes workplace giving could enable in 2023. As you approach the beginning of the year, I'm sure that you're communicating your goals to your donors. You're telling them what projects you hope to complete this year. You're telling them how many beneficiaries need help this year. You're reminding them of all the work that still needs to be done. And so I'm sure that a lot of you are kind of thinking in that goal-oriented manner. And so when you communicate your mission goals to donors, show how workplace giving can help you solve those problems and reach your yearly goals. In other words, kind of show that since workplace giving programs result in double impact, you'll be able to more efficiently and even effectively solve for those challenges. And if your donors participate in their workplace giving program, you can do this. And so I think outlining your 2023 goals is the first step. But I also note that as you do that and show how workplace giving will help, it's also really important to emphasize how workplace giving allows the donor to have increased impact and be an active part of helping you reach that goal this year. And the reason that that's so important is because, we've emphasized the importance of incorporating workplace giving into your overarching strategy because it engages supporters. Of course, we know it provides those financial benefits, but when you're talking about connecting with your supporters in the new year, that engagement really is key. And so as you communicate these workplace giving opportunities, we just want to reiterate the importance of nailing the tone of the messaging. When communicating the opportunities, you want to remain donor-centric. And so in other words, show donors that you're crafting these communications and sending these messages because of the benefit they provide the donor. You're helping remind donors to take advantage of an employer program. You want them to be able to effectively maximize their impact. And in the beginning of the year, when some donors might have resolutions to be more charitable or have resolutions to do more good this year, you can show them how either their gift in a match or their volunteer time in a grant can help them achieve that resolution, and at the same time set a cause that they care about up for success in 2023. And so really, the more you can explain the benefits to the donor and use these workplace giving appeals to show donors that you value them and want to help them, the better. This goes for your communication of both matching gift and volunteer grant opportunities. Both forms of workplace giving should be framed in this way to kind of maximize and incentivize donor participation. A match means their gift is doubled, and a grant means their time also resulted in tangible funds, both of which ultimately mean the donor's initial contribution or commitment has grown and become more impactful. And so that's kind of a messaging tone to keep in mind. Remember your goals, communicate how workplace giving can help, and communicate how workplace giving allows the donor to have this bigger impact. And while that applies to kind of both opportunities we're discussing, I do want to break down the matching gift and volunteer grant opportunities separately as well. That way you can understand how to leverage both and get started with either today. And so as you might have guessed, there will be a lot of similarities between how we promote the two, but there are slight differences. And so I do want to begin with matching gifts. First and foremost, it's important to incorporate the matching gift appeal across multiple channels. Since I talked about the fact that awareness of these opportunities is low, educating donors about matching gifts across those various platforms can help close that donor awareness gap. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail in a second, but the idea being that the more you can discuss matching gifts and the more chances you give donors to learn about them and interact with the process, the better you'll kind of be able to capture and hold donor attention. At the beginning of the year, we know that this differentiated appeal can encourage donors to reacquaint themselves with your organization and definitely explore your content. The next piece of the puzzle is to be clear about where the match will go. Show the donor that their match will have an impact. I know we discussed this a little bit before, but showing the donor that their gift matched will result in X outcome makes it kind of really hard for them to not engage with the matching gift process. Showing donors what matching gifts have done in the past, what they can do in the future, will definitely make the donor eager to learn more and to read more about matching gifts and see this as a way to give back to your organization this year. In terms of like how you go about doing this, I always recommend using storytelling to help. We know that donors connect to stories of beneficiaries. They want to hear of how donations and matches helped you provide a scholarship, if you're a school maybe, to your student who's now thriving and taking advantage of those school programs. Maybe if you're a hospital or healthcare organization, they want to hear about how their gift and a matched helped you propel research forward so that you could find a treatment plan for your patient, right? There are a number of ways that this can come into play, but the bottom line is that if you can use stories to suggest that impact, it's really powerful. Donors think about their gift in terms of like the number of beneficiaries it can help, the outcomes it will enable. And so I think that explicitly crafting your messages with that in mind and using storytelling to help is key. From there, you also are going to actually want to help the donor understand if their company offers this program and if their gift is eligible. And so, for example, let's say you learn that your donor Mary works at Disney. You would then want to tell Mary that Disney has a matching gift program. And maybe you also tell her that they'll match up to $25,000 per employee. Plus, they'll match her gift at that dollar for dollar structure, meaning that if she donates $200, they'll also donate $200, right? I give these details to show you that donors care about those details. Your donors are going to be interested in the minimum and maximum amount their company will match, the match ratio, which employees are eligible, what institutions are eligible to receive the funds, and more. And so they'll want to understand just how their company structures that matching gift program. And if you can provide your donors this information, then you definitely stand to benefit. Beyond just helping the donor determine their eligibility, though, to engage them with matching gifts and help simplify the match process for them, you'll also want to provide donors with their matching gift next steps. And so if we're going back to that last example that I gave, if you find out that Mary works for Disney, help her understand where Disney accepts those match requests. Guide her to that portal or tell her where to access that form. By formally outlining the process for her and clarifying it, you're once again kind of holding her attention, showing her that you understand her unique needs and next steps. And so I think that by taking these three approaches, you'll be able to effectively initiate the matching gift conversation with donors, motivate them to action, and really engage them along the way. Before we do dive into some similar tips for engaging supporters with volunteer grants, I do have one additional shout out here in terms of where to market matching gifts to ensure each of your donors sees these appeals and has that opportunity to engage with them. And so I think there are at least 4 really important places you can consider. First, you want to use your website to market these opportunities, while also kind of providing a way for donors to determine their eligibility directly on your site. The reason that we suggest using your website is we know this is kind of where donors go to learn more about your mission and how they can make an impact on that mission. So your website is obviously where donors learn how to donate, where to donate, what your organization is working on, and more. And so it almost becomes this place of central truth. Donors definitely rely on the information here. And so if you can talk about matching gifts on your website, you can increase awareness. Plus, by actually creating something like a dedicated matching gift page where donors can learn about the matching gift opportunity, donors will then be able to understand all of the ways they can give back to you, all of the ways they can get involved this year and more. Of course, as you encourage donors to explore your site and kind of look for ways to increase their involvement in the new year, positioning matching gifts as one of those ways can be really powerful to helping you achieve your goals. Showing donors that there's multiple ways that they can provide support to your organization is key to helping them stay involved in the new year. Of course, by also allowing donors to determine their eligibility on the site, such as by maybe embedding a matching gift database or something similar, you can keep donors interested and make sure the appeal or information doesn't lose its effectiveness. You want donors to be able to learn about matching gifts and then be able to decide if they qualify so that they can ultimately take action, all without there ever having to be a disruption to their engagement with your page, right? Next, I think we'd be a little bit remiss not to mention how powerful it can be to use your social media accounts to market matching gifts. I always like to say that social media has a wide reach, it has a large audience coverage, and so that's why it's so important. Plus, of course, we know that social media might often help you reach maybe a younger audience as well. And so I think that even adding one or two posts related to matching gifts on your social account can help break up your normal content and more effectively keep your subscriber base eager to interact with your page. Once they see those appeals that we've discussed, that could kind of be the impetus they needed to donate and get re-involved with your organization this year. You can make a post that piques their curiosity, telling them that they could have twice the impact, and then guiding them to your website to explore your matching gift page. Third, you'll want to leverage your email outreach to market matching gifts. You can use your newsletter to inform all of your donors about the power matching gifts can have on your efforts this year. So, like we talked about before, you can mention matching gifts and explain the benefits. You can tell your newsletter recipients that many of them have renewed eligibility now in 2023. Their employer program might have reset in the new year's, which means that this appeal is really timely, right? And so encourage donors to start thinking about when they'll take advantage of their eligibility this year and get them thinking about matching gifts as a really seamless and important part of your kind of giving process. Of course, another really important place to market matching gifts is during the donation flow itself. And so what that looks like is maybe on your donation form, you collect employment information. You ask donors to enter their employer, and you can provide some context that you're asking this so that you can determine if their gift could be matched. Of course, this engages donors with matching gifts at a really key time. And then in the moments after the donation, once the transaction is submitted, you can provide detailed next steps regarding the request process on the confirmation page and send follow-up emails that serve as a really engaging post-donation touchpoint. And so really my point here with these 4 places to market matching gifts is that everything can kind of be integrated and interconnected to create a really engaging donor experience. Your social media can make a matching gift appeal, which drives the viewer to your website, which then drives the viewer to go to your donation form to submit a gift where they enter their employment information, right? Find out their eligibility and then later receive a reminder to submit their matching gift request. The point being that this interconnectedness and cohesive donor journey is what is so engaging and will keep your donors kind of eager to learn more this year. When you can make these satisfying and rewarding appeals while also making it really easy for the donor to act on them, you'll definitely be kind of well on your way to that 2023 success. Of course, though, beyond just matching gifts, we also discussed or outlined the volunteer grant opportunity. And again, there are a lot of similarities here. Just like with matching gifts, you'll want to promote the appeal across multiple channels. I won't spend a ton of time here since we just emphasized all those different avenues available and the same applies. But the point being that since awareness of volunteer grants is low, but once aware supporters really find this appeal empowering, you want to be sure that you provide multiple opportunities for your supporters to learn more. So mention volunteer grants on your social media, include information on your website page, send newsletters or emails that include this information and more. Think of all of those avenues that we just discussed. However, I do have a call out that's specific as it relates to volunteer grants. When you ask your supporters to engage with these opportunities, it's generally best practice to make sure that you're offering them very specific volunteer opportunities if they want to take advantage of their grant eligibility. So rather than saying something along the lines of come volunteer with us, maybe you say, help us check in attendees at our event that's happening next week. It'll be a 3-hour commitment of time. You'll have an opportunity to engage with other volunteers and event sponsors, right? I think that specificity encourages people to see a need for their volunteerism and then understand how that volunteerism will be coupled with a financial amount. As other best practices when it comes to volunteerism and making sure your eligible volunteers, remain engaged, we want to emphasize that the tasks you give those volunteers should be easily taught. They should keep the individual occupied for the duration of time, right? Ensures that they have a really empowering and positive experience volunteering, which will then ultimately encourage them to do it again and earn more grants. In addition to being specific about the actual volunteer opportunity itself, we also recommend that you engage volunteers with this form of giving by providing kind of ample opportunities for them to reach their hour threshold. As we mentioned in the beginning, every company might have a maximum number of hours they'll provide grants for, or maybe they don't provide a grant until a donor reaches a certain threshold of time volunteered. Make sure that your volunteers are able to meet those requirements and take advantage of their program to the best that they can. So provide a lot of volunteer opportunities and keep them engaged. Moving on, the next suggestion is similar to what we highlighted before as well. Just ask your supporters where they work on your sign up for and form and aid volunteers in logging their hours. In other words, you really want to help your supporters navigate volunteer grants. And so as you collect employment information from these individuals that are really eager to contribute their time, you can, just like with matching gifts, determine whether they qualify for grant opportunities and then craft a follow-up strategy. You can alert them that they're eligible. It also goes a step further because we know that every company that offers a volunteer grant program requires employees to log hours and show proof. And so it's crucial that your volunteers kind of stay on top of this and track their hours. If you can even aid your volunteers in this process and make it really easy for them to submit documentation and proof of time to their employer, you remind these volunteers to engage with the volunteer grant opportunity and make doing so really simple for them. And as my last little call out here to tie everything together, we've kind of repeatedly mentioned this idea of capturing employment information. We want to emphasize that you can use this employment information in kind of a reciprocal or double-sided way. As you receive employment information from your donors, maybe they're not eligible for a matching gift, but they're eligible for a volunteer grant. Or maybe your volunteer isn't eligible for a grant, but they're eligible for a matching gift. Best case scenario, maybe this individual is eligible for both of these opportunities, right? You want to make sure that you're communicating that eligibility for all of these programs back to your donors and showing them multiple ways that they can get involved. Because when they do donate, when their gift gets matched, when they volunteer time and that time commitment results in obviously a monetary donation to your organization, that encourages the individual to become more engaged with your organization and obviously more satisfied and fulfilled. As I wrap up this section and prepare to pass it off to Matt so that we can dive into other smart fundraising appeals, to just kind of emphasize the timeliness of getting started with workplace giving this quarter, I have 5 brief reasons. 1, many donors have renewed eligibility. A lot of matching gift programs and volunteer grant programs reset at the beginning of the calendar year, so this is timely. Moving on, this is a differentiated appeal that holds donor attention. It's not a pure financial ask, so it kind of breaks through the clutter. Third, this is an opportunity to steward your year-end donors. As you're looking for ways to help them kind of get involved further, this is the perfect opportunity. You can show them all of the different avenues. Fourth, workplace giving allows donors to maximize their generosity, which of course will increase their satisfaction all year long. And then 5, if you promote these opportunities starting now, you can benefit from them all year round and ensure no opportunities really fall through the cracks. And so I know that that was a brief overview to workplace giving, but I hope that we positioned that as one way to kind of fundraise smarter this year. But Matt, I'd kind of love to hear your insights on other unique things that you can do with smart fundraising.
Perfect. Thank you, Mackenzie. And I'm just going to double check that I am turning my camera off so that I didn't distract from Mackenzie. Just make sure that I am. It says I'm broadcasting. So if anybody wants to jump in the chat, if anything's not working, then please let me know. So yeah, from corporate sponsorships and matching to smart fundraising ideas this year in the mobile bidding experience and the platforms that we spend our time in. And I usually like to start, what we think about 2023 and 2024. We want to build on some of the things that we learned during the pandemic. And I'm sure that a lot of discussions, a lot of webinars this year are talking about how do we go on from here. This is a very big topic. And so my focus when discussing what happened in 2020 and 21 is, really around the event fundraising space. So very specifically to your events, you're doing a silent auction. a live auction, walkathon, a golf outing, a fund and need only event. And that's really where, we're applying our lessons. And so we did learn a lot during the pandemic. And one of the things that we learned was that donors made the transition without pausing giving. So, which is an interesting, pivoting from in-person event. We had that four-walled venue that we were going to have in March or April or May. And then literally within a week's time, everything was shut down. And we had to pivot our charities from a physical event to an online event. And the interesting thing for us is that ever since we did our first event back in 2002, we have been an online auction experience. Oh, looks like I got a little bit of a question about making my mic a little bit louder. Let me just take a look here. Microphone. I'll try to turn that up a little bit more, and hopefully that helps a little bit. So anyway, actually back one slide really quick. And so we help organizations go online, but ClickBid has always been an online auction. And that's an interesting, what we learned from that was that organizations really do see in-person events, in that 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. event. We're going to sell tickets up to that event. We're going to start our fundraising at 6 p.m. We're going to end our fundraising at 11 p.m. And many, many times when I've been at events, I've heard charities say, so much of our fundraising is based on this night, things that we plan to do, programs, employment opportunities, things, really hinge on the ability to raise money tonight. And it's always, it's been a limiting factor with these physical events. And of course, the pandemic pushed everything online. And what we found was that it was very easy to help charities pivot to those online and virtual events. And when I say virtual, when we did the events online with organizations, we did a lot of video broadcasting. We created a package that allowed you to broadcast in real time. And, many Saturday nights I would, be here in the office helping charities, broadcast those events from ballrooms, from offices, conference rooms, and so on, really getting the message out. And charities really embraced it, and they continued to get the message out during the pandemic, but they had to do it virtually and online. So now what I put together was a couple of statistics from that period of time. And I put them in categories of pre-pandemic and the pandemic itself. So data pulled from 2018 to 21, that might be a little small on the screen there. Pre-pandemic, we saw roughly on average 82 items per event. During the pandemic, we saw it actually go up, which is really surprising to see, because with all of the businesses closing down and, restaurants not being able to offer things, organizations still were able to find items for their auction and for their event to bring people in, to draw people into the event. We did see the number of people participating in the auction, people actually placing bids, went from 215 on average to 182. But what was interesting is the number of bids per event went from an average of 473 to 576. So what that means is that organizations, I said earlier, where they put a lot of that fundraising effort between 6 p.m. on Saturday and 11 p.m. on Saturday, that same day, organizations had to expand outside of that box and start fundraising online. And they could, some of those limitations didn't exist anymore. We could start fundraising. We could start the auction on Monday, let it run for 2 weeks. We could close it when we felt that it was time to close. There were some roaming closing times and things like that. But organizations didn't have to operate during a 5-hour window anymore. They could operate on a much bigger window. They could culminate with a broadcast like like a lot of them did, but they could also just run the entire event online. And of course, when we see the winning market value, because of the increase in bids, the mathematics behind that shows that you increase your income raised because you're closer to that 100% fair market value. The more bids, the more money raised, and it just kind of works obviously in that direction. And again, because we were able to expand beyond the four walls of the venue, we were able to actually raise money all week long. And so one of the things that we want to make sure we do is that we continue that going forward. And so on the next slide, we want to blend the services of online with your in-person events. We're obviously, to clarify, I highly recommend and fully support and embrace in-person events. I think that's huge. I think people want to get back to them. We're seeing it, all over the country. And before I was started talking, I saw people from all over the country joining in Texas and North Carolina and Virginia and Michigan. And so everywhere people are going back to in-person events. However, we don't want to lose the energy and the momentum that we found when we were forced to move online. And so on our next slide, I want to show you, I like to give examples and demos. So what I did was I set up a QR code, and this is as if I were running an event for a charity, the ClickBid Foundation, for instance. Every event has a QR code. If you go ahead and take your phone and you scan this code, you'll go to what we call a virtual venue. This is the landing page of your event where you can broadcast, you can let people donate auction items, you can let people preview the auction, buy tickets to the event, and so on. You can go ahead and type in your phone number, register. We won't commit you to any bids that you place, and then you can go ahead and start bidding. What that will do is it will bring you to a page that looks a lot like this. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll just show it. On the very top, you might notice if you can see it. If not, you'll just have to go and scan the code and check it out. We have a auction that's running, and I'm actually broadcasting from my little Windows Surface tablet right here off to the side. I'm broadcasting at the same time as doing this Zoom meeting. And you can see the ability as a charity to broadcast your event to people who cannot attend. We're going to talk a little bit about that as we continue through these slides, but that QR code will get you signed in. I recommend using your phone if you're watching on your laptop. I don't want you to stop watching, but anyway, so let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. We want to make sure that you have the right platform to succeed. We focus, obviously for the last 21 years, we focused on just our niche, our auction fundraising event experience. And we know that you have a CRM, hopefully, that you love and trust the data that's inside of it, whether it's Neon, Salesforce, Razor's Edge, Bloomerang, Little Green Light. You trust all the data in there to get all the historical donations and giving for your organization. And you want to make sure that you don't have 6 different platforms, one for this and one for, ticket sales and one for, video and one for all these things. We want to make sure that we keep it as simple as possible. So finding the right platform is going to be very important. When you can consolidate your event fundraising into one platform, then you don't have to waste a lot of time in learning, the stress and anxiety of making these two talk together. And then you want to make sure that all that data gets sent to that CRM that you trust. And so, this is standard information. When I do webinars, I do clarify and say, ClickBid, you have many options in the mobile bidding space, and we are one of those options, which we think is, a great option, but you do have many options. So this list is a good checklist to go through when you're working with mobile bidding to make sure your event fundraising platform has everything it needs. You should be able to sell tickets. This includes assigning seats, getting meal counts, promoting, receiving donations before, during, and after the event. So you can give your catering company a head count and the number of vegan and filet options that were selected. You should be able to assign people to seats and so on. And then you should also be able to receive donations, in addition to all of the fundraising that you're going to do through the auction, the live auction, and the appeal. Real-time video, I call this out because this is definitely the future for us, going forward, from not just someday in the future, today and tomorrow and into 2024, the rest of 2023, and so on. Like I said, being able to broadcast the program of your event to anybody who is associated with the organization but may not be able to be at your event is critical because you're engaging people. And then also, we want to make sure that that data can easily be sent back to your CRM. Well, what kind of data? That data would include somebody who purchased a ticket, somebody who purchased some raffle items or purchased a silent auction item, made a donation, won a live auction, their sales data, things that they purchased and transacted during your event. You want to make sure that that gets sent and is imported into your CRM properly. So you want to make sure that that platform can handle that, has a solution for it. And so, again, moving forward, I want to talk about, at the beginning of this section, we call it the smart fundraising ideas, the SMART event. And so I have a list of 7 things that I want to, share with you. And some of them, like this first one, may be one of the most important, and it's very, it's not a very technical thing. And so I do want to call out my little artwork. I picked my pictures for my slide, and I kind of like this artwork style. Yeah, I have 2 people preparing a meal. This is really what we're doing. We're preparing, and we're cooking the perfect SMART event. We want to make sure that it does all the things that we learned from the pandemic and what we've done for years and decades before with in-person events. We want to put it all together, and we want to make a very smart, successful event. The very first thing, and it's a relief to know that this is something that anybody can do. It's all about being ready. Now, in the 21 years that I've been doing, online auctions and in-person auctions and so on, I've been to several hundred events personally, on site, in the ballroom, at the check-in table, the checkout table, and so on. And I've seen, a lot of different things. And really, when I look at the most successful events are the ones where they really know how to handle that beginning phase, the check-in, and they really know how to handle the checkout experience. And when people come to an event, we want to make sure they get in, they get through the check-in line, because we're standing between them and the open bar. And then at the end of the event, we want to leave them with a good feeling at the end of the event. And so we're standing between them and the valet that's bringing them their car. So we want to get through those very quickly. Now, Mackenzie talked earlier, actually, one of the points she made up is that volunteer hours can be used in that company corporate matching program. We recommend that you use volunteers to handle the check-in and the checkout experience. And you have somebody from the organization physically present to handle all the questions that only they can answer. So what does that really look like? The brass tacks is that for every 100 guests that plan on attending, we recommend that you have 1 person available to check them in. And that means at a table with a laptop to answer those questions, to check them in. And check-in is very, very simple. Can I get your last name? Type it in, pick their name, confirm the cell phone number that they have on file, and send them a text message. And that's it. We repeat that process over and over again, several hundred times, and people get checked into the event. It's really that simple. What makes people prepared for that is that everybody is seated at the table 10 minutes before the event. And I'm being very specific. These are things that from my experiences of having the privilege of being at these events, just some great experiences, I've seen that these are really what it boils down to. It's not a technical thing where will the Wi-Fi stay up and, is the AV team ready? It's usually these things that are very, very important. And this is a very important one too, that somebody from the organization be positioned planted at the table with you, because there are questions that come up. What slows down these experiences, the check-in, the checkout experience, are the questions that nobody can answer except the organization. Can I change my table assignment? Ooh, I really didn't want the vegan meal, or I have a question about a certain auction item, blackout date or something like that. When the volunteers that are going through that very repetitive process have to stop and go find somebody, then it becomes a very slow process. Things slow down, people line up, congestion kind of gets a little bit, clunky. But if somebody is seated there, then those volunteers can say, oh, well, let me finish your check-in, and then I can have you talk to, Susan, who is the organization representative, and they'll be able to reassign your seat or help you with that solution. And then the volunteer doesn't have to try and answer a question that they're not really authorized to answer, and they can continue that process. And that, again, creates a very smooth experience. When we hear the compliments of check-in, we hear, boy, that was really easy. That was really smooth. Man, I was in an event 2 weeks ago, and it was just a mess. Everybody was standing outside in Michigan in February, and they were freezing. So when you hear those things, that really is you're hearing the success of that experience. And it really, again, boils down to being prepared. The same is true for checkout. By having somebody ready 5 to 10 minutes before people start checking out, again, having people seated and a volunteer, an organization representative available to answer those questions, the checkout process is as repetitive as the check-in process. And when somebody asks a question, which they will, of can I keep these items here until tomorrow when I can get a big truck because I bought like 10 things? Those questions have to be answered by the organization, not the volunteer. And we want to keep things moving. We don't want people queuing up and asking questions and not getting answers. And then that's where they leave with that, negative attitude or that negative feeling from that event. Or when they leave, because everything ran smoothly, they sing the praises of the event, even at the next event that they go to. So you're getting continuously good press about that experience. So again, I really spend a lot of time on that one. But from my experience, it's one of the most simple things that you can do is make sure people are ready 10 minutes before the doors open, 10 minutes before checkout begins, and having somebody from the organization literally seated to answer those questions. Everything runs much better that way. You'll be blown away, and you won't need to pay for 10 people to show up at your event when it's not really necessary. Okay, so I spent a lot of time on that. We'll move through some of these other ones much more quickly. We want you to expand beyond your four walls. Again, you can spread out that giving for an entire week. Instead of being limited to Saturday night, we can open the event on Monday morning the week before. That does a lot of great things. One, it gives people a chance to engage with your organization and the auction items. They place that first bid on the item, which is always the biggest, the one that gets you that 35% of market value. We recommend, if an item is worth $100, we say start the bidding at 35. That $35 bid takes your totals way up. Before you open the doors on Saturday, you're 35% of the way to your goal. That's a huge, huge thing. So we want people to start bidding on Monday. Now, the way to do that, again, by taking that video experience with us forward from COVID into today, let's do a kickoff experience. Now, you'll notice if you logged in to the bid site that I sent, you see me talking. You can't hear me because I turned off the audio. I didn't want there to be feedback. But you see me talking, and all I have is a web page, and I pressed a start button, and it turned on my camera, and I can start talking. So on Monday morning, as the organizer, I'm going to send Director Bob, I'm going to send him that link and say, hey, at 9:00 on Monday morning, tap on this link and start welcoming people to the event. We're going to do a kickoff experience. On the Friday before, I'm going to send out a big email and let everybody know Monday morning, 9 a.m., Director Bob's going to get online just like he would with a Zoom call, and he's going to share from his office a welcome message, give you a little bit of a taste of what's coming this week. It's going to be awesome. You definitely don't want to miss it. Monday morning, 9 a.m. Then on Sunday, I'm going to send another follow-up email, and I'm going to say, oh, and by the way, at 9 a.m., when we open the auction, whoever places the first bid on any of the auction items is going to be entered into a giveaway. And we're going to do that later in the week. So again, you're engaging people, you're enticing them to come to the page on Monday, and they're getting those bids in, they're getting acclimated with the software, they're participating and engaging in your charity. There's a lot of value and wins all in that process with very little effort. So if we go on to number 4, we want to keep donors engaged during the lead up. So like I said, this happened on Monday, but the event is on Saturday. So one of the things that I felt was really important during the pandemic was, and possible now that nonprofits were, and admittedly, nonprofits can oftentimes have to be forced into these changes because, there's a way to do things. We don't change the way to do things. It worked last year. It's going to work this year. COVID forces us to make change. And we did, and it went, and we did raise money, and we did succeed, and we did persevere. And so we're going to take that forward. I think it's important to say Director Bob, or the keynote who's going to speak to us on Saturday night, is going to do another broadcast on Wednesday. And this time it's going to be at 2 p.m. Our director and the speaker are going to be in the same room, and we're going to talk for 5 minutes about what's leading up to this. And maybe in addition to, on Thursday at 11, we're going to do a tour of the facility. Maybe it's a school or a rescue mission or, anything. You want to give people a tour. When people see and experience your organization, of course, we all know that that generates an awful lot more interest. It makes everything much more real than if you're trying to say. That's why I did this demo, so that you could experience it and not just listen to me go on and on and on about, smart events and whatnot. So we want people to experience it. And with video, we have that capability. I can open the same broadcast from my cell phone and I can walk around, and people, YouTube has shown us that people eat that stuff up. It's really, really powerful when they see that in real life type experience. Number 5, creating a touchless check-in. So we've moved ourselves all the way up to Saturday, and we're letting people into the event. The QR code that I gave you about 3 slides ago is the exact same QR code that I would print on a big, foam core board, and I get an easel and I'd put the words check-in here and lean it against an easel. So when people walked into the event, they could scan that code, confirm that they're coming because they're here, and then they can start bidding immediately and go straight to the bar. And what does that do for everybody? We said we needed 1 volunteer for every 100 people. Well, now that 1 volunteer is going to be much less busy because half of our crowd went through the QR code to the bar. They skipped the check-in table. They didn't need to do that process because they were able to use the QR code. It's touchless. In addition, you can send that QR code 24 hours in advance through an email. Hey, use this QR code now, or tap this link and tell us you're coming now. Airlines do that all the time. And it's really to reduce the amount of effort and congestion at the airport before your flight. If people can walk straight to security, then there's less American Airlines personnel that have to stand in line or have to be at the gate to help people check their bags and all that stuff, and then go to security. So we want to make sure that we do that check-in, give a couple of options, let people come to ask questions, but also give people a chance to do the touchless check-in. And like I've said earlier, I've kind of camped on this, is the whole broadcasting your program. Now, I'm not suggesting that, you broadcast everything, like people walking around, having dinner, but when the director of the organization gets up to start the program, to welcome everybody, to talk about the organization, the previous year, the upcoming year, having the keynote, having a video, that's the kind of thing that you can broadcast to people who can't be there. There's always going to be people who cannot attend your event. In the best of times, people are on vacation, they have a scheduling conflict. And we don't want to simply lose that opportunity. We want to engage them. So how would that really work? It's very, very easy, because if you're using a venue, you've probably already secured the services of an AV company. And that AV company has already placed a camera in the back of the room, and they have 2 big projectors on either side of the stage. All you're going to do now is just take that same thing that they're putting on the big screens, and they're just going to broadcast it to your event. And then 10 minutes before the program starts, you send out a mass text message or a mass email that says, hey, the program's going to start in 10 minutes. Don't miss out. It's going to be an amazing program. We've trimmed out all the long-winded stuff. We're not going to let Matt talk again this year. So we're going to have that. It's going to start in 10 minutes. Don't miss out. Now, if I'm on vacation or at a business trip and I see that text message come in, yeah, of course I'm going to be like, oh, that's cool. I tap on that, and then I say, whoa, I'm over in Salt Lake City, and I'm watching the video of an event that I was at last year, and I'll probably be at next year, but I'm still getting to participate. Oh, and by the way, there's a donate button, so I don't miss out on my chance to donate. Because we use in this, tying into number 7, because we use real-time video that has less than a second delay, it also, because it's happening so fast like a Zoom call, if I'm watching from Salt Lake City, I can also bid in the live auction, as if I were sitting at one of the tables in the room. The auctioneer says, can I get $500? I can bid $500. If the auctioneer says, can I get $800? I can bid $800. As if I were sitting in the room and I'm bidding against my friend who wasn't out of town, who thought he was going to get this item instead of me, and now he's not because I'm bidding. And the same thing with the Fund a Need. I can see my name show up on the screen while I'm in Salt Lake City placing that bid. And that actually happened last year. I was in Philadelphia, and my son's school had a fundraiser, and I was able to watch it from my hotel room. It was really, really cool. And it was in real time. So as things happened, my family walked by and they waved at me because I told them to wave, and they did. And it was really, really cool. So as again, we're engaging people in this cool factor, in this smart technology, but again, we're putting it on the low. I always say, put the cookies on the lower shelf so that everybody can get to them. And that's what we're doing, with our platform, and what we're trying to do for all of the charities that are out there to really expand beyond that 6-hour window on Saturday night. There's no reason to limit it to just that 6-hour window. All right, so next slide. I believe this is my last slide, which is good. I keep checking my watch to make sure I don't go over. The SMART event is future-proof. And we learned, again, in that 1 week in March in 2020, things happen, and they happen fast, and that we have no control over how they happen. And when it happens in the way that it did, everything just stops, and venues shut down, and we can't do our fundraising. We're forced into this big pivot and panic of how we're going to handle this. What we want to do is future-proof that from ever happening again. And in our world, as event fundraising, our events don't have to happen in person. They can happen virtually and through a hybrid. Yes, we absolutely want to happen in person. We want to get people together, to gather, to give as a group, and to feel that connection, and to socialize. But for people who can't attend or are too afraid to, risk, maybe they're immunocompromised and they're just, I would go, but hey, I have this option. I can watch from my phone or my laptop. Let's do that. I'll still give. That's great. I'm going to get those donations, and I'm going to get people to engage and learn about the charity. We want to make sure that no matter who can attend or how, that you never have to postpone that event because you lose a venue. But in addition to that, we also get new opportunities. Imagine in the summer, people don't have events as much because constituents are gone. They're on vacation. They're all over the place. Things like golf outings are great, but they don't draw in as many people as a big fall gala or spring gala. But now you can actually broadcast, again, through video, the winning ceremony or the short program after the golf outing at the tent. Let people participate, so that when I'm on vacation, imagine standing in line at Disney. My family loves Disney. So imagine standing in line for 3.5 hours, which is what we would probably have to do if we wanted to ride, a Toy Story ride. And I get a text message while I'm standing there wishing I were anywhere else other than the happiest place on earth. And I get a text that says, hey, check out the program. Oh, well, yeah, this is perfect. I got plenty of time. So I hit the link and I start watching the program, and I see my friend get a victory, a prize, the best, the closest to the hole, all those things. And there happens to be a donate button. Yeah, of course, I'll give a donation, and I can tap the bid, and I can make that donation, place a bid, and so on, because I'm able to interact in real time from wherever I am. All right. Well, I think, yes, 3 minutes to spare. I did have some staff jump in to answer questions while I talk. I usually like to do that. But if there were any specific questions for either Mackenzie or I, we'd be more than happy to take those.
Yeah, 100%. As we're kind of looking for those to come in, I just wanted to reiterate, I think something that reigns true throughout both of our sections is you were talking a lot about like hybrid events, engaging people from wherever. And I think that that's kind of goes to this whole idea of donor choice, allowing our donors or event attendees to give in the ways that make sense to them, to kind of engage with our organization in ways that make sense to them. So I loved your kind of point there. I'm seeing some questions in the chat here about, does DTD have a template email we can send to donors to encourage them to check if their employer matches? If you do sign on to double the donation, we have those automated email streams that actually, like, that's one of the emails is for donors with unknown eligibility, for donors with known eligibility. It kind of sends them those templates. Where do you find out what companies have matching programs, and how do we find out their processes? There's matching gift databases out there, which Double the Donation has as well. And so you can kind of use a matching gift database to find out what companies match. It has like their minimum and maximum amount, the match ratio, all of that. So a lot of really detailed information in there. But even if you don't leverage automation, I always just suggest a lot of companies publicize this information. They have it like online or in news outlets, so you can find that information kind of on their company website as well.
Yeah, the question here is there such a thing as opening your auction too early? If so, when might that be? That's a great question. The earliest I've seen people open auctions is 2 weeks. What I would recommend in that scenario though is if you open your auction early and you have that much time in between the beginning and the event itself, release more items, and they become great communication, tools to put up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, your website, emails. We just found these 7 new items. These are going to add to the catalog, and then you can highlight those. But the sweet spot for me is 1 week early.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I do see a question about if it's possible to direct people to the Double the Donation lookup tool beyond embedding it on a donate page. A really great place to do that is to have a dedicated matching gift page on your website, and you can embed the database there, and then any website visitor could see it and interact with it and find out their eligibility. So I definitely recommend creating a matching gift page. I know that we're getting close to time. Are there any other? I see a question about what do I use for the QR code for people to check in?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So the good news is that it's the same one. The one that I gave you in the presentation is the one that I would use for everything. If I wanted a QR code for people to buy tickets, to make a donation, to register for the event, to check in early for the event, it's always the same one. So if you wanted to get thousands of things printed out with that QR code, it's the same one. We provide it inside of our platform. You can go in and grab it from, I think it's the event section, the event settings section. And we have chat available. We can point you in that direction as well.
Awesome. And I know that we're up on time here, but both of us have our contact information. So if you want to email partners@doublethedonation.com, if you have a question for me, or success@clickbidonline.com, if you have a question for Matt, I'm sure we would both be really happy to answer those questions. I know we didn't have a bunch of time to get them to them today, but really appreciate all the questions that came through, and glad to see y'all kind of interacting with the chat too. Thank you for your insights, Matt.
Yeah, thank you as well. I always enjoy having company match discussion. It's a huge opportunity, and I'd hate to see charities miss out on it.
Yeah, and the events piece was really helpful to re-engaging your donors this year with an event and making that event as successful as possible. So thank you, Matt.
Yeah, my pleasure. Hope everyone has a good afternoon.